Hi friends, welcome back. I'm Tally and today we're going to go through how well I'm doing on the Art Fancy Bingo Challenge. So we're about midway through the Art Fantasy Bingo Challenge. If you don't know what it is, this is a bingo board that is run by the Fantasy board on Reddit every year. It runs from April to March and they also have a hard mode, and as always I try to fulfill the hard mode in everything I do. So let's see where I am. I think that this is the first year I've built a TBR that I actually feel as though I'm making a way in it. But let's find out if I am or not. So here is the board. Here is my TBR. And let's see which ones I've read and which ones I've left to read. So the first row is a book with knights and paladins. One of the protagonists is a paladin or a knight, and the hard mode is the character has an oath or promise to keep. I have put in Between Two Fires on here by Christopher Bellman, but I've just realised I think that the Starving Saints could possibly go into this, and I have read the Starving Saints. I do want to read Between Two Fires, but it would be helpful if I've already ticked this off. She is a knight and she has an oath, or she has promised to keep an eye on the disgraced nun type character. My friends, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this to the Starving Saints because that fits this perfectly, and I've read that book. The Starving Saints was quite enjoyable. It was long, I will give it that, longer than I anticipated, but yeah, it was a really interesting book. So this is by Caitlin Starlin, and it follows three characters who are inside a castle during a siege where the occupants are slowly being starved to death. We follow a knight who is like the right hand woman of the king, and she is tasked with keeping an eye on a kind of not disgraced, but like a previous nun type character who is now like their scientist. And she has recently found a way to purify the water so that everyone within the castle has water. And she's been tasked by the king to now find a way to make food basically appear from nothing. And she is not doing this fast enough for the king's, in the king's opinion. So the knight is tasked with keeping an eye on her and keeping her on track. We then follow that nun, or rather the previous nun, and we also follow another character who is like trying to move among the shadows and has her own secrets and reasons for being in the castle. The castle is then visited by the saints that they pray to, and the saints have their own things in mind, and everything just goes kind of crazy. So great book if you haven't read it yet. The next book is a hidden gem. This is a book with under 1,000 ratings on Goodreads. New releases and arcs from popular authors do not count, and the hard mode is published more than 5 years ago. I've put in this book called Of Craft and Honor, A Templar's Chronicles by George Buttigieg. This is a book I bought when I lived in Malta, and I've yet to read it, so this is one that's still waiting for me to read it. A book that was published in the 80s, and hard mode is it was written by an author of colour. I have not fulfilled this prompt, but I do have Beloved by Toni Morrison in this square. I have been wanting to read this for a while, so I was excited to be able to fit it into this square. I have ticked off the next prompt, which is high fashion, and it's read a book where clothing, fashion or fibre arts are important to the plot, and the main character makes clothing or fibres. And I put in I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman, because this follows a group of women in like a dystopian time scale country. We don't really know. They just know that they are in a like bunker underground, like a dungeon, and they have a few male guards, but apart from that it's just a bunch of women, and they use clothing to try and feel some like normality of what the society and world was like before they went into the bunker. We follow a young woman. She is the youngest one there. She went into the bunker as a child, and they believe like an accident happened because the rest are all older women. Um, but they never took her out, so she grew up there. So she doesn't remember life at all, society before being in this bunker. And when the guards disappear one day and the bunker's like left unlocked, they leave. They find themselves in a unknown landscape, and they basically build their own society. And so the idea and the concept of clothing is very important. The next book in this row is Down with the System. This is read a book where the main plot revolves around disrupting a system, and hard mode is it's not a governmental system. I have The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins in for this prompt. I haven't read it yet. I did start it a few years ago and I got a few chapters in, so I know that this is about a man who kidnapped children and raised them to each be gods of various things. So we have like knowledge and war and things like that, and he goes missing one day, and the children, now adults, kind of are investigating it and don't really know what to do with themselves. And so the system that they're like bringing down basically is this crazy library system that they were kidnapped and grown up in. If we move down to next row, we have Impossible Places, a book set in a location that would break a physicist, and at least 50% of the book takes place within the impossible place. I will be reading Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I have started it, I haven't finished it, but this is based in a labyrinth, so I think it's almost 100% set in that. For a book in parts, a book that is separated into larger sections within the main text, and the book has 4 or more parts, is hard mode. I will be reading Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. For Gods and Pantheons, read a book featuring divine beings. Hard mode is there are multiple pantheons involved. I've put in Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson. I've still not been able to grab a copy of this yet. I've been waiting for it to be available at my library, but I'm still struggling to get hold of it there. I might just have to buy a copy at this point. And then for last in the series, read a final entry in the series. Hard mode, the book is 4 or more books long. I've put Raph in here. I've been making my way through the John McGuinn series. I'm on book 3 at the moment, so I will be reading Raph before the end of this competition. And then the last one in this row is one I have completed, and that is a book club or read along book. Read a book that has been or is the current book for one of the art fantasy book clubs. They have a few different book clubs, and the hard mode is to participate in the month that it is being read. So to read alongside the book club and like join in the discussion. I have completed this. I read I Got Abducted by Aliens and Now I'm Trapped in a Rom-Com by Kimberly Lemming. This is the first in the Cosmic Chaos series, and I really enjoyed this. It is exactly what I would expect from Kimberly Lemming, going from fantasy to a more sci-fi leaning, comedy, smutty book series, and I really enjoyed it, and it was fun to be able to chat with other people. I still watch out and I join in with any books. I join in with any read-alongs of books that I'm interested in. I don't do it every month. If we move down to the next row, we have a parent protagonist. So a book in which a main character has a child to care for. The child does not have to be biologically related to the character. Hard mode is the child is also a major character in the story. I put in God Killer for this by Hannah Kana, and this did fulfill that. We follow 3 main characters, one of which is a young girl, and we do get her POV, and then the other two characters are adults and they kind of help her on her quest in a kind of parent role. It was a really, really gripping story. It has some fantastic disability representation, some PTSD representation, and I'm looking forward to picking up the second book in the series. It's a trilogy, I believe. For a epistolary book, this is a book that must predominantly feature any of the following: so diary, journal entries, letters, messages, newspaper clippings, etc. And Hard My Dears, the book is told entirely in an epistolary format, and I put in Emily Wilde's Compendium of Last Tales, which is the last book in the Emily Wilde series by Heather Fawcett. It is done through journal entries. Another book that you could fit in here if you haven't read for this yet is Dracula. That would be a good one for this, to put into this. And then published in 2025, a book published for the first time in 2025, Hard My Dears. It's a debut novel. So I haven't read this yet, but I do have Boys with Sharp Teeth by Jenny Howell here. It's a YA debut, kind of dark academia leaning, about obsession, etc. All good dark academia buzzwords. Number 14 is an author of colour. So read a book written by a person of colour, and A Hard My Dears. It's a horror novel. I read the Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I love Stephen Graham Jones, and I'm trying to keep on top of his newer releases as they come out. I also have a huge back catalogue to go back into because he is quite a prolific writer, and the Buffalo Hunter was really good. It's a historic horror book set in the, what times is that? It's like 1912. So it's set not long after the British Puritans moved to the American West and started doing what they did. And yeah, we follow a Lutheran priest, and we follow a indigenous vampire. This one would also fulfill the epistolary section as well. So there we go. And then finally in this row we have small press or self-published. Read a book published by small press. And Hard My Dears, the book has under 100 ratings on Goodreads, or is written by a marginalised author. At the moment I have That Damned Witch put in here by C.J. Rose. This is the first in the Spells and Secrets series, and it follows a witch and a demon who fall in love, I assume. I have read some other indie books that I think could possibly fulfill this. I would have to check the ratings. So if I don't actually get round to this book, I do have some others I could slot in here if needs be. Moving on to the next row is Biopunk. Read a book that focuses on biotechnology and or its consequences. And Hard My Dears, there's no electricity based technology. And I will be reading The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the first in the Shadow of the Leviathan series. I am so excited to pick this up. I am hoping to get to it within the next couple of months, definitely. The next prompt I have fulfilled, and that is Elves and or Dwarfs. Read a book that features the classical fantasy archetypes of elves and or dwarfs. They do not have to fit the classic tropes, but must be named either elves and or dwarfs. Hard My Dears, the main character is an elf or dwarf. So I read Cursed Cocktails by S.L. Rowland, and this is the first in the series Tales of Adria, and we follow a character who is a elf, and he was previously a kind of mercenary fighter for the king during a war, and he has now retired and is trying to settle down in a small town. He wants to have a bar and sell cocktail recipes that his father left him in a book. Very kind of Legends and Lattes inspired, and I really enjoyed this book. For a LGBTQIA plus protagonist, read a book where the main character falls under that umbrella, and the hard mode is the character is marginalized in at least one additional axis. So I have the prequel to Elatsaway on here, Sheena Lende by Darcy Little Badger. Our main character identifies as asexual, and our author is Indigenous. The next book is a staple on this bingo board, and that is 5 SFF short stories. So any science, any sci-fi or fantasy short story, as long as there are 5 of them, and the hard mode is to read the entire anthology or collection. I have completed this. I read The Sea Gives Up the Dead by Molly Olgan. This is like a horror fantasy leaning short story collection, and as with all short story collections, some of them were really great, some of them didn't do it for me as much, but there was none that I disliked in this collection, which is always great. Finishing off this row is Stranger in a Strange Land. Read a book that deals with a foreigner in a new culture. The character or characters, if there are a group, must be either visiting or moving in as a minority. And the hard mode is the character is an immigrant or refugee. I got this book from a list of recommendations, and that's Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. So please let me know if this book doesn't fulfill this prompt, but I will be reading this to find out, on the assumption it does fulfill this prompt. And then if we move on to the final row, we have Recycle a Bingo Square. So this is use a square from a previous year as long as it doesn't repeat on the current board. And hard mode is to do the hard mode for the original square. So I decided to do, there was a square last year of a book that took place, I think it was underground or underwater, and the hard mode was at least 50% of the book took place underground or underwater. And I have fulfilled this with the Dungeon Crawler Carl book, the first book, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. I really enjoyed this. It has its faults, but I did have a really fun time with the book. I consumed it as an audio, which I was told was the best way to go, and I really enjoyed doing it that way. Do I worry that the comedy of the book will get annoying over the course of a series? Yes, which is why I haven't picked up book 2 yet, but I do hope to continue on with this series. For a cozy sci-fi fantasy, I have, and the hard mode is an author that is new to you, I read Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. This is the first in the Tomes and Tea series. I've actually now read all 4 of these books and finished this series. So safe to say, I absolutely loved it. This is very much, it's a sapphic book, and it is very much in the vein of like Legends and Lattes. So perfect if you like that kind of vibe. It has dragons, it has magic, it has sword fighting, it has pirates in the second book and onwards. It is just such a delight of a book series, and I was so sad when it came to an end. The next one is such a fantastic square this year, and I really enjoyed it when I saw it, and I enjoyed picking a book for it. And that is a generic title, so it's a book that has one of the following words in the title. We have bone, blood, broken court, dark, shadow, song, sword, or throne. Plurals are allowed. And the hard mode is that the title contained 2 of that list of words, or one of those words and a colour, number, or animal. Wow. So I ended up reading The Dragon Bone Chair by Tada Williams. This is the first in the series. The series is called like Memory, Sorrow and Thorn. I'm making my way through book 2. These are hefty books. I did really enjoy the first book though. This next one is a really fun one, and it is not a book. So do something new besides reading a book. Watch a TV show, play a game, learn how to summon a demon. That's on the list. But yeah, there's no rule other than it has to be new. And the hard mode was write and post a review on our fantasy. I put in here Little Nightmares. I have 1 and 2 in my PC library that I really want to play. I have played some other games that I could also pop in here that I've already played. I haven't reviewed anything yet, so I guess whatever I review first on our fantasy will go in here. Because I've also recently played Strange Horticulture, which would fit this. I recently played The Ravenous Devils, I believe it was called. So both of those games would fit perfectly in this as well. And then the final book is one that, oh my god, I've been reading this for a few months. I need to pick it up and finish it, but it is but the square is pirates, and read a book where the characters engage in piracy in hard mode is not a seafaring pirate. So I am reading The Red Scholar's Wake by Aliette de Bedard, and this is a futuristic story in which our pirates are sky pirates. So definitely not seafaring. I think just under halfway through, and I really need to finish this. I accidentally put it down and it kind of got lost into the ether of books I put down and forget about. So if we were to replace the first book with The Starving Saints, which I decided to do, that would mean I have read, or I have completed 11 of 24 prompts. So I'm currently at 46%. I'm looking at Storygraph, and it doesn't obviously have the one that's not a book on here. So yeah, but I've done 11 of 25 prompts, and this is worked out as 46%, so just a little one to that. Nearly halfway basically. Could be in I could be in a much worse position halfway through the challenge. The last few years I've been in much worse positions. The last few years I've not even completed the challenge. It does mean that I need to be prioritising the rest of these books though. What of the books that I've left to read do you think I should pick up soon or pick up next? Are you taking part in the R Fantasy Bingo, or are you going to join now and just spend the last 6 months on it? Let me know in the comments. Please consider liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends, doing all the good stuff that helps the algorithm know that they should push me out to new people. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you giving me some of your time. Thank you, friends. Bye.